Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Lucky Chapter 13. Lucky because we're almost near the end. And Chapter 13 is about leadership and something we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. If you have a good leader at your work, you generally have a good place to work. If you have a lousy leader, generally there's a lot of turnover and confusion, and you're not real productive. Money is nice. It really is. But having a boss that you can work with is better. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying take a $2 an hour job because you got a great boss, because you have to have enough money to live. But I've known many people that turned down $100,000 a year and took $80,000 a year job because of the work environment. So once you get past a livable wage, having that choice is nice to do. Now, this guy named Lee Iacocca, who was the CEO and president of Dodge or Chrysler and a few other companies, he listed his 9 C's for leadership. And they make a lot of sense. The first one is curiosity. Listen to the many, not the few yes people that are around you. Another CEO would go to lunch at the, used to be they had little counters, like diners, inside of a few stores, and you could go sit at the bar and get a hot meal and that type of stuff. They don't have those much anymore. But he would go sit down and eat there and listen to the people talk around him, because he wanted to know what the real people thought, not just what he was surrounded with in the upper echelon of his company. So listen, a good leader listens to many people. A good leader is creative. You know, I've been many places. When I started taking over, the first thing I did was I watched how things operate, because I knew they operated for a reason. And I'd say, okay, I want to change this. And a lot of times the people that would work with me would say something like, well, we've always done it this way. Okay, fine, you've always done it this way. Now let's why don't we try my way? And the great thing about being creative like that was I was always so able to be curious and listen, because this is what I think we need to do. And if somebody that's been there for a long time said, well, we tried that and it didn't work because of this. So be creative, question the way, why things have always been done, but also listen to your people that they may have tried it before and it not worked for whatever reason. Communicate. This is a communication course, and to me, that probably ought to be number one, but I'm not a rich CEO somewhere and writing books. So, but give people straight talk. I found out a long time ago, if you tell everybody this is what's going on, then you're much more likely to get good group cohesiveness out of it. If you lie or hide the truth from people, maybe I want to protect their feelings and da 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 da. It's going to cause a lot of cognitive dissonance. Um, for example, my daughter was working in a local place, and the pandemic going on and everything else, the rumors started going that they were going to close, and the manager or the owner of the business kind of avoided those questions, and they ended up closing. But had he been honest with them and said, look, this is where we're at, this is what's going on, and if we can do this, we're going to stay open, but if we can't, we're going to close. And I think the people would have been much more willing to stay and work with him, but a lot of them bailed. They found another job somewhere else, which, you got to pay your bills, you got to do this. But had he communicated with them, I think they may have had a better chance of staying open. I'm not saying they would have, but just my opinion. Character. Do the right thing. Having character means doing the right thing even when somebody's not watching. It's something my mama used to tell me all the time, and I believe it's true. You know, excuse me, you're given choices, and if you take or make the wrong choice, it can cause a lot of problems. So a lot of times, doing the right thing can get you in hot water. But if you do the right thing, generally you're going to be a better leader and a better person. Courage, you know, I met a lot of people in my travels that were braggadocious or swaggering, and that's not courage. Courage is the ability to face the truth, to sit down with somebody and communicate and have a conversation. And a lot of times you're going to hear things you don't like to hear. But if you don't have the courage to have that honesty, then you are destined for failure. Conviction. Make a commitment to see it through. So when you work for somebody, work for them. Don't work against them. If this is what we're going to do, we need to have the conviction to make it happen. And that's something that was very obvious in my military career. We had a mission to do. We were going to get that mission done, and a lot of times it was costly. A lot of times it would hurt a lot of people, or a lot of people could get hurt. But regardless of how hard it got, we knew we had to get it done. Charisma. This is the one I love more than anything else. Inspire people. Find a way to make other people feel good about themselves. And I had a girl that was going to school with me at University of Southern Miss, and she was freaking out. She had we call them statistics instead of statistics test, and she was like, on probation, and if she did bad, she could get thrown out of the course, and um, so she called me one day. She said, "I need to borrow your calculator." I said, "Okay, it's on my desk," and I was in the office then. She was going to come by later, and I put a little sticky note on my desk. It said, "Believe in yourself, I do." And I put the calculator right on top of it. So when she came and picked it up, she saw the note. And she still has that note, 8 years later, 9 years later, 7 years later, something like that. She has it stuck to her computer monitor. It makes me feel good that I had that ability to inspire in her. So now, every now and then, I get a text from her. It's just hashtag KB, keep believing. And it's something we need to do. And I'm not saying I'm a great leader. Don't take that wrong, but I do like to brag about that particular instance. I was able to help somebody have the ability to see that they could do something, and to me, that's teaching communication is like that. If I were teaching science or math, I'd be teaching you formulas. If I was teaching history, I'd be teaching you dates. But in communication, I have to teach you to believe in yourself. And you can do this. A lot of people, I can't do. Yeah, you can. You have the ability to do this. You just have to believe that you can. Competence. Know what your limits are. Know your abilities. And if you don't know how to do something, find somebody that does. Surround yourself with people that are willing to that have the conviction and have the honesty and the confidence to tell you, no, that's not the way to do things. This is how we need to do it. But know what you're doing. And the next one is common sense. If you don't use common sense, you'll never realize what you can and can't do. What's beyond your scope of stuff. I've mentioned before, I'm renovating my basement. I'm putting a bathroom in. And a lot of people say, well, how do you know how to do that? And I said, well, I don't. But I'm trying and I'm learning, and sometimes I make mistakes and I have to call somebody else that has, I got to use common sense. So, well, I could do this, but no, it's probably not a good idea. Maybe I don't know how to do that particular thing. You have to always remember too that groups are systems, and you have to operate within that system. if the group is you have to find a way to function in that group. In the military, we were very big on rank. I called so and so, Sergeant so and so, or Chief so and so, or Colonel so and so, and their last name. When I became a Rotarian, everything's on first name because they don't want any stigma of divide. Like Judge so and so or Doctor so and so. And so the president is like President Bob. And it was real hard for me not to say President Smith because that's what I was ingrained in. And I had to learn to work in a different system. What are the rules of that system? How does it operate? And you need to function within that system because if you don't function within that system, if I kept calling everybody by their last name and their title in Rotary, it don't want to say they would have ostracized me, but I wouldn't have fit in. There's a couple of different leadership theories. Originally, they described a leader as a mechanical system. You have all these gears, and these gears make these things happen, and this gear turns that gear, and it was structured. And recently, or more recently, they have decided that it's a lot more of an art than a science of mechanics. And there's a few different theories. Trait theory describes traits. They have charisma, they have competence, they have that winning smile. And style theory is behavior. How does the person act? Does he act aloof, or does he, act like the common man or woman? I don't want to be accused of being gender ignorant. But I know a lot of CEOs that actually work well. They talk to the janitorial staff just like they talk to the head shed, and you learn from those people. So what type of behavior do you have? Do you have time when one of your employees comes up and they have a problem and they need to talk to you? And sometimes in life we don't have time. There's stuff going on. But if you really don't have time and you get back with them, look, I've got to get to this meeting, but I'll get back with you. And you get back with them, it means a lot to the people that are following you. Universal theories basically says that certain traits and styles are universal across all leadership. And that falls kind of in conviction with Lee Iacocca's 9 C's. He says these are the traits that you have to be a good leader. And in most cases, that's true. Well, situational theories talks about the traits specific to that situation. And I believe personally that we all have some universal theories or universal styles that we use. But to be a good leader, I think that you have to be situational. If my style is this is the mission, let's get it done, and I don't care about the people, I'm not going to have good followers. But sometimes I have to, once again, going to my military background, sometimes I have to say this is what we have to do. But other times, the situation requires that I talk to the person. I change my leadership style for that particular instance because it calls for something different. And it's kind of like teaching. I can teach 100 people, but they're not all going to learn the same. So I have to change my style occasionally to help people that are lost with the general format that we're following. Now, there's a managerial leadership grid on page 229 in your book. And it lists basically 5 different types of leaders. And it's based on their concern for protection compared to their concern for people. The country club leader is real high for all of his people. The middle of the road is kind of in the middle, impoverished management really doesn't care about people, and they have a low concern for production. The authority management, we've all met authoritarian leaders and managers. I don't like to call them leaders, but I like to call them managers, because if you're an authoritarian, this is the way you're going to do it, my way, da 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 da. I don't think you're leading people. I think you're like forcing them, like herding cattle, and that's why I like to use and I'm glad the book uses the term authority management, because you're not really leading. Now, there's transactional theories. Transactional theories are, excuse me, task oriented. This is what we have to do, and this is how we have to get there. Transformational leaders have a strong sense of mission and attract a loyal following. You know, they transform the people in the group, so to speak. Now, Lao Tzu, who was a great, um, what's the word I'm looking for? He was a great leader in China. He said basically, in the quotes in this book, I love the quote: "A wicked leader is he whom the people despise." A good, and sometimes you need to get everybody to hate you, and at least they're all working toward the same thing. A good leader is he whom people revere, and a great leader is he about whom people say we did it ourselves. And leadership is helping people to believe and see they can do it themselves. Now, the book also talks about leaderless groups. And there have been leaderless groups for years. As a counseling person, I went to a couple of AA meetings, and technically they're leaderless. Everybody's equal, and they go on for a long time. But are they really leaderless? A lot of times somebody steps in and fills the void. And even in the AA meetings, there was somebody that stepped up that was making sure that they went through the steps that they were supposed to go through. Now, it wasn't designated or appointed or elected, it's just the person that made sure stuff happened. Now, there are some leaderless groups that, they kind of proud of the thing that, well, we don't have a leader, we're all equal. A lot of times, though, over a time period, um, they fall apart. How do you move forward if somebody isn't saying this is the way we need to go? So there's different characteristics of leadership as well in the book. Vision. A good leader is going to have a good vision, not of just what this is, but the big picture. And this is how we need to get there. A good leader is credible. If the person has no credibility, why would you want to follow them? I tell this to my people in my public speaking classes all the time. There's an acronym WIFM, WIIFM. What's in it for me? And if the leader isn't credible, you are going to say, okay, what's in it for me? Well, I'm not going to follow this person because they don't know what they're doing, or they're lying to me all the time. Communication competence is the third characteristic they talk about. And once again, I'm biased. I think it should be first. You have to be able to communicate competently with a diverse group of people. You can't just communicate with, I'm an old white guy. I can't just communicate with a bunch of old white guys. I've got to be able to communicate with women, with young people, with people of different ethnic backgrounds. And I really appreciate my time in the military for a couple of reasons. One of them was there was such a diverse group of people I was working with: males, females, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, and I had to learn to communicate with different people and different styles, and then the different countries I was in. I had to understand how different cultures communicate, to be able to have the competence to communicate with contractors and such that were coming to work at the hospital. Now, we have different types of leaders as well. They're appointed. You know, the Vern I established the group in my class and I said, Sue, you're in charge. That's an appointed leader. An elected leader is, okay, here's your group. And you guys all say, okay, Jane's in charge. Or we could have an emergent leader. You all sit there and get together, and this is kind of like what happens in a lot of those leaderless groups. Um, we have somebody that's an emergent leader. Somebody in your group decided to email everybody and say, okay, we need to start talking. Somebody says, this is what we need to do. And we have shared leadership. And shared leadership, to me, is kind of like a family, a traditional family. My wife and I lead the pack. A lot of times we did what she said, a lot of times we did what I said, but we were both responsible for the outcome, and we both had equal power. Race and gender is something that you need to understand in leaders and groups as well. And the best example I can come up with this one, and this is strictly a gender one, but I guess it could be perceived as race as well. Um, what's the difference between a leader that is called assertive or a bitch? Unfortunately, if a man has these characteristics, he's generally labeled as assertive. If a woman has those same characteristics, she is generally labeled as a bitch. And I apologize if I offended anybody with my language, but the same thing is true in many race situations. A lot of people, if a old white guy has these characteristics, it's revered in some aspects. That's what a leader should be. But if somebody of a different gender or a different race has those same characteristics, oftentimes they're looked down upon as instead of being revered like they would be for somebody else. Unfortunately, the culture that we were all raised in hasn't changed this enough yet. It's changing, but it's like well, a woman can't be president. Why not? There are women leaders in other countries. Why couldn't one be president? It's the culture that we were raised in sets these standards that are ingrained in us. Oftentimes, and many times we don't realize it. If you're using if you're a technology group, which all of you kind of technically are in this class, it's often more difficult to manage to lead the group. If we are all sitting around a boardroom table talking about stuff, I basically have your attention. You're focused on what's going on. If you are meeting online, many of you, like I do, have more than one monitor. Uh, a lot of times it's easy to get distracted if you're online. If you're online and they're talking about something that you already know, da 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 da, this is boring. Well, I'll check my email and this type of stuff. And a lot of, even with one monitor, you can minimize stuff. I have my notes and the camera on one monitor right now. But I've seen a lot of people become distracted because using technology. Um, what you need to do as a leader in a group that's using technology is you need to develop group trust. And everybody needs to be committed to being there and shared values. You need to empower the group members. A good leader can't do everything. It's impossible. You're going to be in some groups where you have the I've got to get an A, I've got to get an A, got to get an A. So you're doing all this stuff, and other people are, C's get degrees. And it's not necessarily true. C's don't always get degrees, but a lot of times you have to empower the group members. And by building trust and shared values, you can empower them to get their part done. The book talks about different leadership styles. Leadership as a technician. Yeah, I was in a very technical field in the Army. I repaired medical equipment. And there was a lot I knew because of my technical skills. And there was a lot of times I was tasked to be a leader on a group, developing new equipment, purchasing new equipment, renovating the facility because of my technical skills. A leader as a conductor. Many of you have been in band at some point in time or chorus. Um, and the conductor basically brings all the harmony together. It's not I'm the one and this is it. It's I need you now. I need you now. Bring this together, and it brings it together so you have a harmonious group. And leader is a coach. Those of you that maybe some of you that did athletics and sports also did band or choir. I know when I was in school, those two didn't necessarily meet. That was a long time ago, though. But a coach is somebody that helps orchestrate as well. But it's more, it's kind of like a combination of a technical, to me, and a conductor at the same time. If you're a coach, you have technical expertise in this game or this particular thing, and you use your skills to get people motivated and coming along. There's a couple of different leadership styles as well. The Democratic leader is, you know what that is? It's an elected leader. Democratic leader, I was elected, and we use the democratic process to get things done. And, majority rules or whatever you want to call it. An authoritarian leader is this is my way, it's my job, it's my mission, and this is the way you're going to do it. I really don't like authoritarian leaders. I mean, I don't like working for them. I have worked for many, and generally there's a conflict between me and them because sometimes I might know what I'm doing, and I would like you to respect my knowledge, my background, my skills, and maybe I know what I'm doing. And laissez-faire leadership, eh, whatever. They don't really take any. They kind of let it flow. Most leaderless groups, from what I've seen, have laissez-faire leadership. Is whoever's in charge. mm, you can do this, you can do that. I don't care how you get it done. I had my son-in-law build a frame for an antique mirror for me, and he said, "What? How do you want this? How do you want?" I said, "Look, it's up to you. It's your project." That's why I contracted it out. So I have been all three types of leaders at some point in my life. When as a parent, there was many times I had to be the authoritarian leader. My kids wanted to do this. Tough. You ain't gonna do it. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. I'm in charge. Or when I grew up, I'd say, "Why?" My mom would say, "Because I said so." And like I said, she's 90 and I'm still afraid of her. So other times I've been a Democratic leader. This is what we've got to get done. What do you folks think? Let's work together. Let's get it done. And like with the frame, I contracted it out, so to speak. And my son-in-law wanted to make it like I wanted, and he wanted me to be happy with it. And, I really didn't care. I told him, these are the dimensions. This is what I want it to look like. How you do it, I don't care. Make it how you think it needs to be made. So that is basically leadership according to chapter 13. If you have not come up with a date for your group to meet on Zoom, you need to be working on it. I got an email from one group that said, "Look, with work and schedule, we're not exactly sure. Can we do it a week out?" And I said, "Yeah, you can do it a week out, but you know, oftentimes things are left up to the last minute, and then everybody freaks out. All hell breaks loose. Somebody can't make it. You have to remember this is just like if you were scheduled for class that day. So y'all have to find a time about 30 minutes or so. I'm gonna open the Zoom up for an hour, but a time in that week where all of you can be together and I can Zoom with y'all. Now, because I'm legally blind and I don't drive and I live out in the 3.5 miles of dirt road, I'm pretty stuck here. So my schedule is generally open. I've had students talk to me at noon. I've had them talk to me at 8 in the morning. I've had them talk to me at 8 at night. So y'all need to find out a time. That's chapter 13. I hope it was informative. I hope I didn't bore you too much of my stories. And remember, believe in yourself because I do.